You are live. Okay, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? So, my name is Michael Music. I have been studying this book called Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill, and I wanted to go live real quick so that I can stay consistent today. And I got a call at 11 a.m., so I'm gonna only keep it short and sweet. And today, I'm gonna be start reading Persistence, which is the sustained effort necessary to induce faith, or the eighth step towards riches. And this is a powerful chapter, so I don't want to rush it. However, I felt like okay, I can read 6 pages, and I have a good stopping point for it, and I'll pick up tomorrow with it. So let's get started because I do want to get these 6 pages read. And yeah, with that being said, this is chapter 9, Persistence, one of the most valuable chapters. A little bit of background before I get started in reading is I've personally read this chapter every day for a whole month. And the wonders it does for me is incredible. And I'm definitely glad to get to reading it again because persistence is truly the a huge key. There's no substitute for it, as we will read later. And you will notice that all men who have achieved great riches have persistence within them. So this is definitely a very special chapter. I think personally, along with the chapter on decision, this is my favorite chapter. I would say that decision, I like the first 4 pages so much. Like there's nothing that can top that for me. And then this whole chapter on persistence, I would say, is my favorite entire chapter in the book. Um, so yeah, let's get right into it. Chapter 9, Persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. So persistence is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the power of will. Willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. Men who accumulate great fortunes are generally known as cold blooded and sometimes ruthless. Often they are misunderstood. What they have is willpower, which they mix with persistence and place back of their desires to ensure the attainment of their objectives. So I want to pause right there. Napoleon Hill is saying that these men, like Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, all these real giants, are known as cold blooded. They have two things: they have willpower, which is basically saying they hold one idea on the screen of their mind, and then the other factor that they have is persistence. So they persist in holding that idea on the screen of their mind to obtain their objectives. And this is like an insurance policy, is what he's saying. Persistence is insurance against failure. So what Napoleon Hill is saying, which we'll get more into later on, is if you have persistence, you just bought yourself an insurance policy against any temporary defeat because you know personally that you can get back up. So Henry Ford has been generally misunderstood to be ruthless and cold-blooded. This misconception grew out of Ford's habit of following through in all of his plans with persistence. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. These few are the Fords, Carnegies, Rockefellers, and Edisons. There may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. The building of a fortune generally involves the application of the entire 13 factors of this philosophy. So this is important. So what Napoleon Hill is saying in that line is that if you really want to build a fortune and truly use this book to the degree that it's meant to be used, you will want to master, or you will need to master, the entire 13 factors of this philosophy. These principles must be understood. They must be applied with persistence by all who accumulate money. If you are following this book with the intention of applying the knowledge it conveys, your first test as to your persistence will come when you begin to follow the 6 steps described in the second chapter. So, what Napoleon Hill is mentioning is if you really wanted to get started, go back to the chapter 2 on desire. I think there's the 6 steps on desire. Let me pull it up. Okay, so page 26, he's saying. So let me put a bookmarker here. So what he's saying, this is something I do when I read this book, is I actually will go back to page 26 and reread the 6 steps in desire. And since I am going over this book, I might as well read it so that I can show you what I'm talking about. So if you are following this book with the intention of applying the knowledge it conveys, your first test as to your persistence will come when you begin to follow the 6 steps described in the second chapter. So these 6 steps are on page 26 now. First, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. It is not sufficient merely to say, I want plenty of money. Be definite as to the amount. There's a psychological reason for definiteness, which will be described in a subsequent chapter. Second, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. There's no such reality as something for nothing. Third, establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money you desire. Fourth, so I have step 4 underlined, so this is going to be important. Create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you are ready or not, to put this plan into action. So just FYI, so I read before chapter on decision, I think it was episode 8, possibly 7 and 8, I read organized planning. This is key to helping you. This chapter, organized planning, is a key component to helping you with step 4, which says to create a definite plan for carrying out your desire. You want to understand all 13 of these principles. They all interlink, and that's now interesting. Now that I'm reading it out loud, how much I get it now, that it's just so cool how all these steps are linked together. So basically, you want to make a plan and put it into action is step 4. And 5, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire. Name the time limit for its acquisition. State what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. 6th, read your written statement out loud twice daily, once just before retiring at night and once after arising in the morning. As you read, see and feel and believe yourself in possession of the money. Okay, so step 5 and 6, this is pretty simple. I am going against this own philosophy of teaching it, but if you have a goal card, that essentially, if you have one of those goal cards that Bob Proctor gives you or teaches you to make, which I definitely wish I had on me so I don't look like a fraud, but one of those goal cards sums this 6 steps up pretty straightforwardly. And on your goal card, what I wrote is, I'm so happy and grateful now that I write my goal, and in the top right corner, there's a date. As I further along in this discussion, I want to link these goal cards below so that you guys can actually just print them out yourselves. But essentially, those 6 steps in the chapter of desire, it can be summed up in the goal card pretty straightforwardly. So don't make it more complicated than it really is. So going back now to the chapter of persistence. So I just read the 6 steps in desire. I'm going to go back now to the chapter on persistence. If you are following this book with the intention of applying the knowledge it conveys, your first test as to your persistence will come when you begin to follow the 6 steps described in the second chapter. Unless you are one of the 2 out of every 100 who already have a definite goal at which you are aiming and a definite plan for its attainment, you may read the instructions and then pass on with your daily routine and never comply with those instructions. The author is checking you up at this point because the lack of persistence is one of the major causes of failure. Moreover, experience with tens of thousands of people has proven that lack of persistence is a weakness common to the majority of men. It is a weakness which may be overcome by effort. The ease with which lack of persistence may be conquered will depend entirely upon the intensity of one's desire. So that's interesting. How he think about what Napoleon Hill is saying when he words it: the intensity of one's desire. Wallace D. Waddle says it's not about doing certain things; it's about doing things in a certain way. And what I'm getting from this sentence right here is, yes, you got a desire, but there's also levels to a desire. There's different frequencies on how high, what's the amplitude of your desire. So I'm like an engineer, so I think in like wavelengths and stuff. So this makes sense to me, when the intensity of one's desire. So if you put this into action right here, right now, your desire must be intense. That's what he's getting at. And I would say if you have a goal card, you did this step. So I want you to like just take a deep breath if you have a goal card. And if you don't, I'll work with you to develop that goal card, because that is probably pretty essential. And I can't say myself that I have it carried with me every single day, everywhere I go, but reading it out loud now, it's something I'm really thinking about and I'm going to do. The starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desires bring weak results, just as a small amount of fire makes a small amount of heat. If you find yourself lacking in persistence, this weakness may be remedied by building a stronger fire under your desires. Continue to read through to the end, then go back to chapter 2 and start immediately to carry out the instructions given in connection with the 6 steps. The eagerness with which you follow these instructions will indicate clearly how much or how little you desire to accumulate money. If you find that you are indifferent, you may be sure that you have not yet acquired the money consciousness. It's think about when Napoleon Hill says the money consciousness. He brings this up a few times throughout the book, and I want you to ask yourself, what is a money consciousness? What does that look like to me? And yeah, so you have to acquire the money consciousness, which you must possess before you can be sure of accumulating a fortune. Fortunes gravitate to men whose minds have been prepared to attract them just as surely as water gravitates to the ocean. In this book may be found all the stimuli necessary to attune any normal mind to the vibrations which will attract the objects of one's desire. So this book is saying it's basically a stimuli that's going to sharpen your mind so you develop this money consciousness. What's up, Brandon? How are you doing? And that's why I find this book so interesting, because it really does stimulate your mind. This has become my new form of stimulation. That sounds weird, actually. I'm not going to say that, but anyways, moving on. If you find you are weak in persistence, center your attention upon the instructions contained on the chapter on power. Surround yourself with a mastermind group, and through the cooperative efforts of the members of this group, you can develop persistence. You will find additional instructions for the development of persistence in the chapters on auto-suggestion and the subconscious mind. Follow the instructions outlined in these chapters until your habit nature hands over to your subconscious mind a clear picture of the object of your desire. From that point on, you will not be handicapped by lack of persistence. Your subconscious mind works continuously while you are awake and while you are asleep. Spasmodic or occasional efforts to apply the rules will be of no value to you. To get results, you must apply all the rules until their application becomes a fixed habit with you. In no other way can you develop the necessary money consciousness. Okay, so basically the goal is to continue practicing these principles until this truly becomes a habit. So even though I've read this book plenty and plenty of times before, it's truly not a habit yet, or else I would have mastered the philosophy. So that's what Napoleon Hill is really getting at. Anyways, a poverty consciousness develops without conscious application of the habits favorable to it. The money consciousness must be created to order, unless one is born with such a consciousness. Catch the full significance of the statements in the preceding paragraph, and you will understand the importance of persistence in the accumulation of a fortune. Without persistence, you will be defeated even before you start. With persistence, you will win. If you have ever experienced a nightmare, you will realize the value of persistence. You are lying in bed, half awake, with a feeling that you are about to smother. You are unable to turn over or to move a muscle. If you realize that you must begin to regain control over your muscles through persistent effort of willpower, you finally manage to move the fingers of one hand. By continuing to move your fingers, you extend your control to the muscles of one arm until you can lift it. Then you gain control of the other arm in the same manner. You finally gain control over the muscles of one leg and then extend it to the other leg. Then, with one supreme effort of will, you regain complete control over your muscular system and snap out of your nightmare. The trick has been turned step by step. You may find it necessary to snap out of your mental inertia through a similar procedure, moving slowly at first, then increasing your speed until you gain complete control over your will. Be persistent no matter how slowly you may at first have to move. With persistence will come success. If you select your mastermind group with care, you will have in it at least one person who will aid in you the development of persistence. So, personally, from me, I did not used to have persistence to the level I do. I know I can definitely have more persistence, but one thing that has helped me out personally was having a mastermind group where my mentor, Sean G. Murphy, he is a true example of persistence. So I've seen an individual do 1,000 episodes and he does them in a row every single day. So because I was in a mastermind group with him, I finally made a decision that, okay, I'm going to do what he does because I know it's duplicatable and he has helped aid me in persistence. So what Napoleon Hill is really getting at is having a mastermind group with people who are persistent will help you really develop this talent. Some men who have accumulated great fortunes did so because of necessity. They developed the habit of persistence because they were so closely driven by circumstances that they had to become persistent. There's no substitute for persistence. It cannot be supplanted by any other quality. Remember this, and it will hearten you in the beginning when the going may seem difficult and slow. Those who have cultivated the habit of persistence seem to enjoy insurance against failure. Once again, he brings up that the habit of persistence is your insurance policy against failure. No matter how many times they are defeated, they finally arrive up toward the top of the ladder. Sometimes it appears that there is a hidden God whose duty is to test men through all sorts of discouraging experiences. Those who pick themselves up after defeat and keep on trying arrive, and the world cries, "Bravo, I knew you could do it." The hidden guide lets no one enjoy great achievement without passing the persistence test. Those who can't take it simply do not make the grade. Those who can take it are bountifully rewarded for their persistence. They receive as their compensation whatever goal they are pursuing. That is not all. They receive something infinitely more important than material compensation, the knowledge that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Okay, that was interesting. So, hey Ed, so I'm reading Persistence, and Napoleon Hill is saying that the people who are persistent, not only when they do achieve success, they not only receive their compensation whatever goal they're pursuing, but they also receive something infinitely more important than material compensation, and that is the knowledge that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. So every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. What does that mean to you? It means every time, to me, whenever I'm knocked down, there's always a seed. It's not right there present, but there's a tiny seed planted that when I get knocked down, that there's something out there that is equivalent in nature that will help me get back up and keep pursuing on to my goal. That's what it means to me, at least. and I can definitely word it better, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. There are exceptions to this rule. A few people know from experience the soundness of persistence. They are the ones who have not accepted defeat as being anything more than temporary. They are the ones whose desires are so persistently applied that defeat is finally changed into victory. We who stand on the sidelines of life see the overwhelmingly large number who go down in defeat, never to rise again. We see the few who take the punishment of defeat as an urge to greater effort. We see the few who take the punishment as defeat as an urge to greater effort. These, fortunately, never learn to accept life's reverse gear. But what we do not see, what most of us never suspect of existing, is the silent but irresistible power which comes to the rescue of those who fight on in the face of discouragement. If we speak of this power at all, we call it persistence and let it go at that. One thing we all know, if one does not possess persistence, one does not achieve noteworthy success in any calling. And I'm going to end it right there. So, yeah, that was the beginning of the chapter on persistence. Uh yeah, definitely powerful. One thing I learned from this is simply the fact that one, if I can maintain persistence, then I do got an insurance policy against any temporary defeat, all that bull crap that goes on. And two, that every time I do get knocked down, there is a seed of an equivalent advantage in every one of those failures. And it's not going to be blatant at first. That's why he says in his words that it's a seed. But that is some cool stuff. So, with that being said, I wanted to thank you guys for watching, and I will be going live all next week. It will be 10 a.m., and I'll keep you up to date if anything changes. But besides that, I will see you all for now. By Facebook. All right. And I'll see you YouTube. If you guys want to find me or find more information on Think and Grow Rich, go to my Facebook group. All you got to do is search up Think and Grow Rich with Michael Music. It should pop up as the third one once you type in Think and Grow Rich on Facebook. So find me there. And yeah, I'll continue to study this book. I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m.